So, Colette, I'm Alexandra, and I am the publisher and the book club manager of this, perhaps the only spiritual book club in Sweden. So, yeah, we have a really nice job here to make sure that the spiritual interested audience in Sweden gets good stuff.
Yeah.
So we buy a lot of rights internationally, and Hay House is one of our biggest distributor of rights, so to say, to
Yeah.
Sweden. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I've been looking at this. This is a Swedish version. So I've
Yeah.
been looking at this, we haven't started to do um, Oracle decks until quite recently, so 2 years perhaps. And so I've been looking at this one for a while and figuring, oh, it has a couple of years, and but still, it's such a nice deck. And Alexandra at Hay House, she has told me that this one, it just keeps on ticking.
It's the number one deck that yeah. And,
So
well,
yeah, that's why it's here right now,
sure.
and it's for the spiritual book club in Sweden. And I'm so happy that you have time to actually talk to me
Absolutely.
about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's the deck I teach with. And it is the number one selling deck of all my decks. I have 19 decks. And it's the one that keeps going because I believe the intention behind the creation of it has a longevity also because like all my decks, but there is a universality about the lexicon or the vocabulary, the spiritual and psychological vocabulary that the a deck is based on. So I should tell you a little bit about how I do this. So I create real divination systems, and when I say that, it and what mine, I don't want to say anything about anybody else's, but what makes mine very specific is really my fascination for these types of things that stem from when I was a kid. My father, well, actually, my nanny from Scotland, her name was Mrs. Kelly. She read playing cards for her friends when they came to the house, so she was a real psychic. My parents didn't know that. And she recognized that I had a gift when I was a little kid and tried to tell my mother, and my mother wasn't having it. I remember she said to my mother that I had this sight, which I do. But I thought, and my mother was like, no, no, no. And what I thought was because I was the only one in the family that didn't wear glasses. So I thought she was saying that I didn't need to wear glasses because I was listening on the other side of them. It was very funny. Anyway, I always knew I could see things, and I remember even seeing the energy around the table when my nanny would have her little friends over. Anyway, she was old. She was like 80, I think. Fast forward, my father was Serbian and my great-grandmother was Mongolian. And there is a tradition, Slavic folklore. It is not uncommon for to read tea leaves in coffee grounds. So my father was very adept at reading Turkish coffee grounds. And so he taught me when my mother wasn't looking, when I was a little older. And he shared with me all the different aspects of what I could see in a cup, for example, and what they would mean. And a lot of that was he was talking to me about symbolism and spirit animals and all kinds of things that, existed in Serbian folklore. But also, he explained to me that these were universal things, that I would see these archetypes. And that really stuck with me because I could. Um, I didn't find out until actually my parents had died when I was 30. They died back to back. My parents' oldest friends had also come to Canada from Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, and after World War II. And they told me a story about how my father would go into a trance and in these like in one of the cocktail parties that they had, and told these people that the fact that they were having an affair with another person in the room, and he didn't remember saying it at all, and my mother forbade him to ever do it again. She would divorce him.
Ah,
So oh no, I'm not kidding. So they knew what I did for a living after my parents died because I had gotten into it when I was, I got sober when I was 20. I'll tell you the whole story, but anyway,
Yeah, please.
30. Yeah, because it's all very relevant.
Yeah.
Anyway, then and they were the ones who said to me, "You come by this naturally by your father, and your mother wouldn't let him do it, and it runs in your family." And so that made it easier for me to understand this what I had, except, they were immigrants coming to Canada, and they had the attitude that if I didn't get a degree, then I would not have value, right? So that they came, worked really hard, put my sister and I in private school education, kind of reorganized our last name to not be so immigrant like, so that we would fit in. My father was titled, King Peter was alive when he was born. It was 1908. But we know today that the title of Baron doesn't mean anything at all, but it sounded good to the British because they loved royalty. So they thought, which was bullshit. But anyway, that's how we got into this fancy schmancy private school. So they had an agenda for me that did not include what I wanted to be, which was music, because musicianship comes to me the same way that intuitive information comes. So it's very natural for me. But they wanted me to be a lawyer. So
Oh,
yeah. So
dry.
very dry. But that said, the excuse me, I suffered from a lot of mental health stuff growing up, and um, I became a drug addict and an alcoholic. And I didn't finish university. I went into university. I had a very terrible, I would say, experience with violence. And that really shaped my low self-worth and because I couldn't be who I was. And so consequently, I made some really poor choices that led me to a tremendously difficult life in my early 20s. However, looking back on it, I realized that that experience where I had a psychotic break because I lost the ability to say no, and there were more than one man, etc. I I realized that that gave me an access point because I left my body, and that's actually where I pull in intuitive information now is from that. So what helped me, growing up, I was fascinated with divination, and my father had all these.
Even during the times when you were suffering?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was because I wanted to tell me that I would be okay.
Mhm.
So my earliest interest was more about finding my way out of the darkness. And I believed because I had read so much about all these different ways and all I'm talking about ancient ways, like even bird augury from the ancient Greeks, right? So, which is to watch bird formations in the sky and in water. So, I mean, I was fascinated since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I had my first deck of tarot cards because there were no oracle cards growing up. They didn't exist. So but of course, because you are reflected in the cards, I was very desperate. I was young. But the bottom line is at the end of the day, it died only for a moment because I hit bottom and got clean and sober when I was quite young. I had a spiritual experience, a huge spiritual experience where I mean, I was going to die. There's no question. I was addicted to cocaine. It was during that time when everybody was doing it in the 70s and 80s disco, and then, whatever in the 80s. And so a lot of my friends were very much involved in that kind of nightclub, cocaine and all that. I always say I took the express train to hell and back. But I hadn't slept for a week, and I walked up from a drug dealer's basement. But every day I was praying. I knew that there was something greater than me at store, like that spirit had a plan for me. But all I was doing was basically screwing it up. So, but I remember the feeling I had. I finally saw myself as I was. I was 26 and I was holding the side of a sink and looking in my eyes. And I realized, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then I said, the kind of helped me that was a surrender. And I just said, I can't anymore. And then I had this incredible light that came around me. And it was as if I had died and I had they've been reborn in seconds. And I just felt so calm, and I heard a voice, it's over, right? It's over. So I left. Now, it wasn't totally over because I did drugs a couple more times after that, but I ended up in a treatment center for women. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because there is a purpose to the relationship that I have in my life and my transformation, and the relationship I have for creating oracle cards, because the two go together hand in hand. Because without a true spiritual access point, it's just ego, right? And you're using tools like oracle cards or divination tools to get what you want, as opposed to understanding what spirit has in store for you. There's a big difference of perspective and of motive and intention. So for the first couple of years, I didn't have anything to do with the intuitive world so much, because at that point I was afraid, and I really needed to get sober, and I did. And I started, going to 12-step programs and therapy and church. And, I was just very much immersed in God, really. And I wanted to be a better person, and I wanted to change who I was. And I went to a therapist. This is how it all started again. I went to see a therapist. I had a lot of family.
You are about 20.
26, 27, 27. Oh, 27. I'm going to say I was 27. 20 when my Saturn return hit, right? That's my year. That's when this all made sense, right? So I went to see a therapist, a Jungian therapist, right? So since then I've studied a lot of Jungian therapy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but she pulled out a deck of tarot cards.
Ooh.
And am I not here for therapy? Because I had been doing readings, right? And at that point, and I'm like, why are you pulling out cards? But she used the cards in a way to reflect where I was at, where I had come from, the depth, without even me telling her anything about me. We were able to see what was reflected in the moment. And I was completely flabbergasted, because I had never known that divination, right, which is to ask a divine guidance from a source beyond you, right? That's what divination tools are, right? It's an intermediary between you and a higher power that could be used for anything other than predicting the future, like fortune telling, right? Because that's what I was good at. Right? So I was in shock, and I was like, we can use these for this. So I continued after. I was so amazed that I developed my own system of self-reflection that really helped me not lie to myself. As I got clean and sober, I was still young. I still wanted to be a musician. So first and foremost, that was part of my personal transformation story, right? That they were not these tools of what's going to happen and am I going to get what I want. They became something very much richer for me. And so then I went back to do all the studying, and I started to understand the more ancient, why did they use these things? It was also to set intentions for something that was greater, that served the whole. They were really community based. So anyhow, fast forward. So I started doing readings because I could. It was so easy. And
with cards or without cards?
I don't need cards, but I use the cards because people are too freaked out unless you have cards. I don't,
Not anymore.
No, because but back then, I'm 67. So I'm going back 40. Yeah, I know my mother had a chubby face too. Like, oh my God, she looked so young. My parents looked so young. It's funny because I've never had any work done, and people go, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be 67 in 2 months. And I'm very proud of that. So we're going back 40 years. Okay. When doing readings was so fringe, it was not part of the mainstream at all. But I gained a reputation. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. Even people gave my phone number out in dinner parties and in airplanes. And by the time 6 years passed, I had clients in 29 countries without people called me long distance from all these places and invited me places. So I traveled. I got invited to all these incredibly amazing places to go and do readings. And I'm like, I don't really do this. I'm really a singer. Like, that's what I'd say. So at that time, I also developed my own system. And the reason I'm saying this is because it is I would say, you know how sourdough bread has a starter, right?
Yeah.
Or yogurt has a starter. So the starter of this deck began then. So
Yeah.
I found the tarot scared people. Like when they saw the death card and they saw the negative cards, like it was very medieval, and it is medieval because that's when the first deck was. It was reflecting of the society at the time that it was meant to serve. So I'd be like, I'm going to make my own. So I made my own deck, and which became the oracle cards, the basics of all my oracle cards, the system, using playing cards with stickers. And I would number them, and I gave my own interpretation of that I understood from some of the more ancient systems that were much more universal. Anyhow, so I would do a reading for the client with the tarot that they knew, and I would double check it with what I knew. And so that's how they became a personal transformation tool, because the client, yes, they did come to me for predictions, because that was what I have an uncanny ability. I don't freaking know where it comes from. I have no clue. It just is, and I have access, and I can't do normal things like make bacon, eggs, and toast at the same time without wanting to cry. So I mean, it's just like I'm very not normal. But I would recognize patterns and say, eventually, this is how I got into intuitive coaching, which is the foundation of that deck, which was, well, what if you could change? Like, you're going to keep on repeating this. I'm seeing this here, and you want something different. But what if it was you? You were the common denominator. And what if you could make a different choice? What if you were capable of that? Would you do it? And because I had already done that for myself using my own system, plus going to, getting sober and really devoting myself to spiritual path and learning, and all the old teachings that, where my foundational teachings were from, and, Blavatsky and all that really old, like Alice Bailey, the metaphysicians from the turn of the century and the Golden Dawn, and all of the original, like the real OGs, and even like again the ancient ones that still are valid today. We've just modernized them all, but I'd done that for myself, and then I realized that there was some psychology behind this that would be possible if anyway. So then a client would say yeah, or they'd say no, I really want this, and I'm like, okay, fine. But then I developed a coaching curriculum out of that question. Like, I see this, it makes sense. And then it would invariably happen, and they'd come back and go, oh my God, you told me this was going to happen, but I really approached it differently, etc. So I could really see how these tools, oracle cards, because that became my first oracle deck, just playing cards, right? How they could actually help us understand ourselves better, get out of denial when we're in denial, because of course we are, right? Right. Reflect patterns when we're in them, so we understand what we're reacting to, help us make better decisions, and at least shed light. Like, I always say that this deck is like a flashlight, to see in the dark, to illuminate the shadows. It's a shovel to dig deeper into the depth of the ground of your life where you are rooted, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because you can get lost, and so you want to make sure you don't get lost. And it can also chart a course for you. When you want to set an intention, you want to manifest something. So this has always been the intention behind my creation. So I think this is the third or fourth deck I did. That's the fourth one.
So what was the
First
first
deck
one
was
called? Did you
Wisdom of
publish the
Avalon.
first one?
Oh yeah, I have 19, right? So Wisdom of Avalon was first.
Oh, yeah.
Wisdom of the Hidden Realms was second. The Enchanted Map was third, and then this one was fourth. And then
Oh.
I've since then done a number of decks, all of which has been published in Europe. But this deck that you have in your hand was the most extensive that I'd ever written.
Yeah, it's 52 cards and a really thick booklet
Very
with 200 more than 250 interpretations.
Yeah. So the reason being is that a card or an image or a metaphor, if you will, or symbol, which is what you see on the cards, can mean different things according to the quality of the question you ask, but the subject.
Yeah.
So they are nuanced. And given that we are living in a society now with less and less nuance, I provide that in that booklet, right? That I show you what the nuance is. Like, when you're asking about a relationship, this is what it's reflecting, which is different than when you're asking about your business, your prosperity, or whatever. And then when they're upside down, everybody would freak out when they'd see upside down cards. And some
Yeah.
of the decks are actually only read upright. But I call them, this was a deck when I decided to rename it to protection. Because when a card is upside down, it's a gentle nudge from spirit that you want to realign with what is in the highest good for you. It's not telling you that you're going to have a bad experience. It's telling you, hey, there's a hole there. Do you want to jump in the hole, or would you like to walk around the hole? Because there is a lesson here for you to learn, and that there's always a second chance, right? So it's
I have to show you because I just made this. I just picked
okay,
this card, and you could actually see that this is about protection.
right?
Yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Like,
Oh,
don't move forward so quickly,
exactly.
right? Is basically that. But if you pulled it right now, it's like, it's basically, this is going to be a long interview and you can edit it later.
I'm not in a hurry.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, but it could be about anything. So anyhow, so the decks beforehand. So I will say, how do I make these things? So I don't intellectually make them. That was what was so interesting. The first deck came to me because I was very obsessed when I was a little kid. I used to paint blue moons on my forehead. And that was the symbol of the priestess of Avalon. Now, even though that is British, I'm not anything British, but it is a legend that is common amongst many cultures, that there is this isle of women, you know what I mean? That have strength and foresight, and that were part of the matriarchal culture prior to patriarchy, which every single culture on this planet has that point where one dissolves into the other. That's just the truth. So that's where that came from. But this deck here came out of the blue, knocking on my door. You need to make me. And I'm like, okay, so what are you? Right. And it was that I am the oracle. I'm like, okay. So I download it, and like I hear it, and then it tells me what it is. Every time I try to force it intellectually, it doesn't work. I can't just make an oracle. And I had that experience actually with Crystal Spirit's deck, which was I had to redo it twice because I was getting too heady about it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you guys just talk to me. And because Hay House had asked me to do a crystal deck, and I'm like, okay, because I love crystals, but I had to really study it. But anyway, back to this. So the artist that I found for this, because now I do my own art, is an amazing artist. Her name is Jenna de la Grottalia. She now
We
does,
love her.
yeah, she's a dear friend of mine. She was only allowed to work with me up until a few years ago. And I just said, no, you need to spread your wings, because otherwise, if you do another deck with me, you're stuck with me. Go out. I want to do my own art anyway now. Go out and do your own thing. And she is. And I'm so proud of her. And she's so fantastic. And we're like sisters, like soul sisters. I support her 1,000%. So when we first got together, I'm very much an art director too. And she needed to do her own thing. Like, I was very controlling, but I wanted it a certain way. I wanted and both of us really loved an artist named Michael Parks, an American artist, and very surrealistic. So we tried to fashion it that way. And like, for example, the consistent things in it is that you see a face in every one of the cards hidden, which is
Yeah.
the actual essence, the living spirit of that card. So that's the oracle is
So
inside.
here you see, for example, there's the face.
Yes, the
There.
face is right
Yeah.
in the dress.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Jenna's incredible. Like, she's so freaking good. But
Yeah.
anyways, so we really worked very hard together on the art. We did a lot of taking away, right? Like pulling things out, because as you've seen Jenna's works, it's very complex and very rich.
Yeah.
Like
And that
pull
is
it out.
actually different here because they're simpler. These are
Simple. I
simpler than
wanted it
many of her
simple.
other newer decks. Yeah.
Oh, her newer decks are nothing like this. Yeah. And but we have both.
Yeah.
And so this is together, we really fashioned something both of us are very proud of.
Yeah.
Um,
Should,
and she was great to work with because she understood that I had a vision and that we had to show that vision as best as we could.
yeah.
We anyway, so that was that. And I love Jenna. And so what happened after that, this then became my teaching deck. So this deck, Oracle School has existed for almost as long as the deck has. So an Oracle School is my personal transformation school where I teach people how to use this Oracle and all Oracle decks as a specifically a tool for personal transformation, not to do readings, not to predict things, but to really help you become who you want to become, and bridge the gap between who you are now and who you want to be, and really to define what that is for you. So that's what Oracle School is. And now I've just launched the Intuitive Coach certification, or Certified Intuitive Coach, where I've rewritten the guidebook completely specifically to support a coach client dialogue, which is what I did over the years. So that's not available. But what I love this deck for, you can use this for predictive readings too. It works. It just works. It works depending on the intention you have to use it. The only thing is that when it comes to predictions, I don't believe in absolute determinism. I believe we see from points of vantage and we see what is possible. This is what's possible or what's probable if you continue on this journey, on this way. But there's no such thing. I've done this for 36 years. Because yeah, I've been doing this full time for 36 years. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that
No lawyer in sight.
no, no lawyer in sight. But I did record 2 albums on the EMI music label, so I still did get to be a singer-songwriter, but this is my purpose.
Yeah.
But we do have the ability to change our future, and we can do that in the way in which we look at our now, and where we place our attention in the now. So it's harder these days, and why I think oracles have become so ubiquitous or so popular. And like everybody's making decks now. It used to be there was only a few of us a long time ago, and now everybody wants to make them, which is great. So that's why in my school now, where I teach people how to use this as a personal transformation deck, I teach people how to make their own a second opinion deck, the way I made mine 35 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So the reason especially now, why I think this deck is so important
Mm.
is because we are so polarized and we are being so influenced by the algorithms that that see where we place our attention, and then it gives us more of the same. We're getting fed with so much propaganda that separates us from our spirituality, because we are being indoctrinated and conditioned into this division. And so this reminds us that spirit is for all, that there is a consciousness of unity that exists everywhere all the time, and that we can take charge of our own lives and where we place our attention and how we manifest and co-create our reality in partnership with spirit or God or whatever you want to say, your higher power. I don't care what people use as language. The bottom line is that we are not the most powerful intelligence, right? There's a greater intelligence than us. Make it nature. But there is something that we need to reclaim. And I believe, and I really genuinely can say this without any ego, because I don't think I made this. I think I was given this. This is going to help people stay on track.
Yeah. I believe so too. There is something about this deck that I don't really, it's hard for me to put my finger, exactly on what it is, but there is something about this deck that makes me uh, tick that
Yeah.
makes me think that this is it. It's
Yeah. It's
only
alive.
one deck. This is what you need. And I connected with transformation, like deep transformation, even though it's used daily or
Yeah.
it's used once in a, once every now and then. And I don't can you put words to it? So what is it that is so unique with this deck, and why is it selling over and over and over
I don't
again?
know.
It's 10 years old now.
I don't know. I wish I could. I don't have an answer for that. I think it's alive. It has its own path, it has its own destiny, and I was the midwife. I really have no clue. I have other decks too. This is the one that everybody loves. And my latest deck they love too, the one with my art on it called Guides of the Hidden Realms, but this one is the one. This and Spirit Animal is the other one. So it's there's
Spirit animal. Oh, that's one of the biggest oracle decks in Sweden, I would think.
oh
People
that might
were
yeah, that was
screaming
that's
after it. Yeah.
and that is also that deck there. My father taught me about that, and I really also think that that one has so much universal. Again, I was channeled the messages. I had no clue. And those ones were like, I was like literally taken over and here, do this. And then Jenna did the art on that one too, by the way.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Yeah.
So it was fun because you said just in the beginning of our conversation here that your father kind of told you
Yeah.
behind your mother's back about
Yeah.
the words.
Well, she was, and you know what was crazy? You want to hear this? So my father had lost all the family's money when I was 24 or 23. And then they were quite well off. They came with nothing. And my father was an engineer and then a land developer, and he made quite a fortune. And that's how they could afford to send us to private schools, etc. And that's how he got a stroke. He had Alzheimer's, and my mother ended up with a brain tumor, and because she was so afraid all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my mother loved psychics,
Mhm.
and totally. And she would go to them, and it was kind of weird. I just wasn't allowed to be one. Do you know what I mean? It was like I was not allowed. I was a failure. I was a failure, but that was okay for her to go. So when she worked in a dress shop, because she never worked, and she was in medical school and stopped to support my dad and to have us kids, right? So she really gave up her life, right? And I think about her a lot. Sorry, I've had a cold for the past month. A lady walked into the store and said to her, "Oh my God, I just had the best reading from this woman. She's here in Toronto. I cannot believe she told me all these things. There's no way she could have known. You need to go see her." My mother goes, "Oh my God, I need to see this woman. Give me her phone number." So
Did
she hands her my name and phone number.
you-
And my mother said, "Oh my God, that's my daughter." So she died proud
She
of it.
had no idea.
Well, she didn't want to know, right? She didn't want to know.
No.
She just thought, "Oh my God, what is she doing?" Because she was only focused on the fact that I was pursuing music,
Mm.
right? And that's all I talked about. I never talked about the readings.
Yeah.
But then my mom asked me to give her a reading. So my
Yeah.
mother died shortly after. But I knew that she knew that
Yeah.
what I was, and that she accepted it, and she was actually proud of me in
Mm.
spite of herself.
Yeah.
Because I did give her a reading. She had met my dad had just died, and we didn't know she had a brain tumor yet. And she had met this Austrian man who owned a car dealership, and I knew who he was too. He's very handsome, and apparently grabbed my mother and kissed her. So she would have been just younger than me, 60. I think she was 64, 63, 64. And my mother was gorgeous, like gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. She was stunning, stunning. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised. She looked like a cross between Gina, what, no, who is it? The Ingrid Bergman and Sophia Loren. That's what my mother looked. She was stunning.
Oh.
Anyway, so I did her cards and went, no kidding. So I saw I saw everything, but then he disappeared.
Oh.
I'm like, I don't know why, mom, but he's just not there anymore. and it's really fast that he just disappears. I don't feel his energy at all. I feel him towards you, and I'm like, I'm really kind of excited. It's like a real romance because my father was 20 years older than her, and that
Oh,
romance had died many years before. So I was excited for my mom. Well, sure,
yeah.
enough, he had died of a heart attack that day.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we found out a couple weeks later that day I did the reading for my mother
Yeah.
about him. I said, I feel his energy. Now I don't feel it. He died. Right? So it was amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but so these are the kind of things that like I don't know why I was picked. I think I can't do a lot of other things really well, right? I do what I do well. I'm a really great artist. I know I'm a good artist. I'm a, a painter. I got an art book coming out, The Art of Manifesting in the fall. I
Oh,
know I'm good at this. I'm good at singing, but I'm not good at basically everything else.
no. No. So you were led to do this because this is where you belong, right?
I really do. And I also believe that I was shown the other path that I could manifest it because you can manifest anything. But why it didn't work because I proved that I was talented, etc. But it was going to kill me to stay there. Like it was the wrong choice. And
Yeah.
this was always, I never even tried this. I never even cared about this. I was like, oh my God, are you people still coming? Like, I'm like, go away. I had a chip on my shoulder. I thought being a psychic and I didn't never use the word psychic. I still just use intuitive, but because that was like, I was some kind of, you know, lower,
Mm.
like fringy fortune teller that my parents didn't respect. So
Yeah.
I had such a chip.
So nowadays it's different, right? I
Yes,
mean,
very different.
it must be even in Toronto. Where are you now? Are you in Toronto?
No, I don't live in Toronto. I live an hour and a half outside on a farm.
Yeah, in Canada.
But I travel and I travel a lot. I was just in Europe for 3 months and I was living in Portugal.
Oh.
Um, I want to come to Sweden because my best friends are in Stockholm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should come here. There is a lot of people here in Sweden who wants to meet you.
I would totally come and do an event for you. I would love that. Are you kidding? I would love to come. Yeah.
Good.
We're
Then you
based
can hit two flies in the same.
well, we don't hit two flies. I don't kill anything. Right?
No,
So
no, 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 no. It's
I
just metaphorically.
but I have to say too what I felt in Sweden. So a long time ago, oh gosh, I think was my first book. I can't remember what it was, or I did come to Sweden. It was a different publisher. I don't think they exist anymore. But I remember walking in Sweden. I still have a scarf I bought there. And I felt such a connection to the ancient Swedish.
Yeah.
There's something that the Slavs and the Swedes have in common. Like I'm Slavic, really, because my mom was actually Polish, even though she was German.
Yeah.
But she had Polish background. So there's a Slavic quality. You're right beside Russia. There's some kind of shared history of spiritual connection that I felt in Sweden and I loved Stockholm. Oh my gosh, I didn't get a chance to see much more of Sweden. Um, and
Stockholm is one of the great spots to see. If you want to, there is a lot of ancient energies in
yeah,
Stockholm, especially if you go into the old city and
that's
stuff.
what I was talking that I meant the old city.
Yeah.
I'd walk up the cobblestones and like, I've
Yeah.
been here before. So I
Yeah.
had a real sense that I had been there before, which I loved.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you will come here again. It feels like
Okay.
that. So you did write books for a while before you went into Oracle decks, isn't that true?
Yes, I have 7 books. Yeah, I have 2 journals, 5 books. And now I have another book coming out called The Art of Manifesting. So I returned, I was a professional artist in my also a long time ago. I made a living painting on people's clothes before I
Oh,
went to readings. Yeah. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush in years. And these beings came through. It's for my deck, Guides of the Hidden Realms. There's these huge paintings that I painted of these beings that kept visiting me. And so I ended up crazily painting. And the next thing you know, I'm all of a sudden I'm doing art again. So I developed with this other teacher, fabulous, fabulous woman in London, a process called the AM method to use very, very simple line drawing, like kind of like this, to create reality and how it changes the brain. So I started studying the neuro arts and how just simple drawing can solidify your intention if you are focused on it while you're moving your arm. You don't have to be an artist to do it. You just need to know how to draw a wavy line and a terrible circle.
But
So
it's about the connection,
yeah,
many times you think about the
spirit.
intention and the feeling in the heart. And
Yeah.
well, if you're
Yeah,
moving
and
the armor, yeah.
how does the universe speak to us, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of, so it's a form of frequency art is what we call it. So that's coming out this September 23rd in America and Canada, and I think in the UK.
Through
So
Hay
that,
House.
oh yeah, everything is through Hay House.
Yeah.
Hay House actually manages my brand now since 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I moved everything. Well, I'm older now, right? And everything that I do now is really to teach other people how to do what I do. That's my commitment now. I'm at a stage in my life for the next 10 years. It's outside of doing artistic things and growing the art brand, and helping people, connect to spirit through art. I want to teach people how to do what I do, what I've done over these past 35 years. And that's my commitment moving forward, is to really help people use the things that I've made, but also to create them for themselves too. So to put them as part of their professions even. Um, so for example,
Do
if,
you use your decks on yourself, like
oh
daily? Do
yeah,
you have like daily routines where you,
yes,
yeah,
every day I pick a spirit animal.
yeah.
But it's really to, what do I need to reflect on today for my highest good? That's the question I ask. And then I'll pick this later in the day if I want to know something different. But sometimes I'll start with this one. Those are my two favorite ones actually too. So they happen to be the best sellers. So I guess. Or I'll use one of my guides of the hidden realms, but I don't have the deck with me here. That's a silly thing. To just, again, what's leading me today? What energy? Because sometimes I can be in denial and I think I'm right about something, and it's saying, hey, you maybe used to rethink this. They'll say, is this really where you want to be going right now? And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Or they'll say to me, maybe it's time to clean house. Maybe it's time for a personal inventory. Maybe you're holding on to a resentment and that's what's motivating you. So they're really, really accurate in terms of keeping me on track. So yeah, I use them because I made them originally. I made them for me, right? So I would stay on track. They saved my life, and then they became something that I made for other people. So they have to work for me, and they have to be real. Like they can't. Again, nothing against the oracle cards that people make that are just like, give me a message, angels. Like that's okay too. Mine are very specific, and all my decks work together too. So in one of the things that I teach in Oracle School is how to have a council of decks, to ask the opinion of these different like it's a different facet of a diamond, a different way to look at the same subject. So I'll choose one card from 4 decks, each one, and I'll say,
And put them out like
yeah,
in reading. Yeah.
yeah. A reading is the story. Like I'm reading a story, right? It's not so much a psychic reading about the future. It's a different. So, or I will do it. Yeah. In coaching, it's reflection. It's like, what energies are present at the moment that I need to be aware of. But when I do it in terms of my evolution, because I'm looking at what's the evolutionary flow right now, because we're always evolving. Your future self is not yourself today. It's not.
No, true.
Who you are today. Would you make the same choices you made when you were 25?
No.
No, right? So, and in 10 years' time, you'll be making different choices again. You'll have different experiences. Like me personally, all my decks were number 1 decks in America, at least in America and Canada. Every single one of them went to number 1, at least for a week, if not for a long time. I've accomplished everything I ever wanted, which I didn't even know I wanted, but there's nothing that I need to do because of my ambition.
No.
It's 100% now. How can I help other people? How can I be that mentor? I'm in my crone years now. It's like, how can I bring this youthfulness that I have that I'm never going to lose, right? This new hope that I have for humanity, and give all these years of experience and share it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do have sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I do have another book coming out, but it's a romance. It's a fantasy romance.
Oh, yeah? Oh, and that's nice too,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so, coming back to this one,
Yes,
what
please.
do you hope that people will use this for? Like, what should it bring them in life if we
Hope.
want it to be specific?
It should bring them clarity. It should bring them hope. It
Yeah.
should bring them accurate guidance. It
Mm.
should bring them truth that may not want to look at, right? It should bring them uh peace and confirmation is what I know it can. I know it could be, it has done all those things for me and everyone else. So I want that for the new people, and for them to understand that why the guidebook is there, to read the guidebook and learn it first before you jump to your personal conclusion.
Yeah.
Um, and that they use it as a tool for their lives and not to be dependent on it. Also, there's something called oracle abuse that I'd
Yeah.
like to talk about, is when somebody pulls too many cards or puts it back in the deck because they didn't like what it said.
Yes.
Right? I call that oracle abuse. And so to be very careful that you don't overuse it, that you keep it sacred. You have a relationship, you build a relationship with the deck.
Yeah. So what would you say are really good questions for this deck as compared, for example, to an angel deck?
Yeah, I don't know how to ask an angel deck, but I can tell you all my decks are based on open questions. None of my decks are meant to answer yes or no questions. They are not binary. They give you deeper insight to subjects. So you would always say, what do I need to know about this today? Or given this point of vantage, where is this heading next?
Yeah.
Or yes, how does this apply to my relationship? What do I need to know that is hidden from me at the moment? Those kind of very open-ended, and it's written in the guidebook too. And that's something we teach in Oracle School that starts in July this year. We have students from 53 countries in that school, come from a
Wow,
lot of
that's great.
Swedes and Norwegians now. But we teach people how to ask the right questions, because it really is dependent on the question you ask. If you ask a bad question, you're not going to get a good answer, right?
No, exactly, and that's why I'm so that could also be, um, how do you say, limiting, when
Mhm.
hearing. So because people might then be afraid of not putting out the right question, for the deck,
Yeah.
and still we want it to be easy, right?
Yeah, you just ask the question open-ended. I
Yeah,
know you want a yes or a no, say, but what would be like, I'll give you an example.
yeah,
So a woman came to me a long time ago, and she's my favorite story to tell about open-ended questions versus yes or no.
yeah.
So she met a guy, and she came to me wanting to know if he was going to ask her to marry him.
Mhm.
So I do a reading. I did a 21 card reading, which was very extensive. And I see in the cards that he's not on the up and up, that
Mm.
there's something fishy about him. But indeed, he was going to ask her to marry him for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
But his motives around this
Mm.
was something that I wanted her to understand, that yes, he will, but here's who he is. Do you know him that well? Have you noticed these things about him? Because sometimes people don't want to hear that. Well, she didn't want to hear anything other than, I just wanted to know, just don't tell me anything about him. Of course, I know his history, that he's been in trouble and blah, 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 but he's not going to be that with me. I just need to know, is he going to ask me to marry him? I'm so excited. Here's your money and leave. So I'm like, okay, but it's like asking me, is Jack the Ripper going to ask me to marry him? Right. So
Oh,
he comes back, 10 months, a year later, I can't remember the time frame. Sometimes I think it's 6 months. Then I tell the story. I'm like, it was, but anyways, a time frame later, why didn't you tell me that he was going to take me to the cleaners and take my money and do whatever? I'm like, I tried. You just wanted to know that I said, you have it on tape, because I know those days I taped the readings on a cassette.
oh,
Did
yeah.
you have that on a cassette tape? You just didn't want to hear it. So she goes, well, what do I do now? And she still was in love with the guy. And I'm like, well, I can't help you. I think you need to go to see a therapist. So I sent her to someone else. I said, I'm not equipped to help you with this. This is something that, you're going to keep doing until you change it.
Yeah.
And So that's why open-ended questions is, what do I need to know about the man that I'm hoping is going to ask me to marry him?
Mm.
Well, he is, but he's an ex-con. He's conned other women out of their money. I can see it in the cards. Gee, so be very careful. I wouldn't trust this person. And then so, but that's why that's what you can learn
Yeah.
even from two cards. If you ask that kind of question, if you're only asking, is he going to ask me to marry him? All you're looking for is that the cards will reflect. Well, my cards aren't meant to reflect yes or no questions anyway. They will ask you to ask more. They'll say to you, um, ask another question, or how deeply clear do you want to be, or this is going to bring you pain. It'll tell you, what the experience will be like. So it's really about, and the other thing is too, is, originally people would come to oracles saying, what's going on? What's going to happen? And am I going to get what I want? Those are the three underlying questions that people are not aware of, or that they won't admit to. What's going on? Am I like, what's going to happen? And am I going to get what I want? Everybody wants to know that. So, but what if that's not the right way to look at it? It's like, what's going on? What do I need to know?
Mm.
Where am I heading in the direction I'm heading in? And then what can I expect? What experience am I, as opposed to, am I going to get what I want? Because you may not, but you might need to have an experience before you get what you want. Or maybe it's supposed to end because what you want is coming in a different form. And so
Yeah.
it enables the cards to give you the right answer when you ask a more open-ended question.
Yeah. So you get the environment kind of
Yeah.
around your situation,
Yeah,
perhaps.
and then you also want to be empowered. I think
Mm.
what also I learned over the years, even though I was really good at it, there was a power dynamic that was, that you have to be so cautious with, because when somebody comes and for you to give them a reading, they're paying you for you to use the power that you have to see beyond the confines of their reality, and to use whatever divination tool to tell them about their future, right? They're going to be passive. It's
Mm.
so much easier then to give their power away,
Mhm.
right? But this is
Yeah.
an empowering thing, right? If you use them this way, you have the power.
Mm.
You're empowered.
Mm.
You're always empowered. So even that's another reason why I went more into coaching, because it was active. A reading is active, me active, you passive. And I never would let a client open their mouth until the end of the reading. Now they get to talk. I go blah, 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 blah. Do you have questions? Does that make sense to you? Give me some reflect at the end. Whereas what I do now, it's like, okay, so here's what's going on. Tell me how that sits with you. What does that reflect? And then it's more of a conversational thing. Except when I do readings though in my membership site, because I still like to keep fresh because it's in me. I have to do it. Like, it's kind of like I have to let off steam, but this is the best way, because I don't like to have the person be in a passive acceptance position. It's much better for people to feel empowered that they can change their future. Why not?
Yeah. Also, I think that because the deck is translated by one of our most, we have a few very like returning translators for books and oracle decks, and one of them, the ones we use the most, is called Sissy, and she has translated this, and
Ah,
she's not very. I mean, she doesn't love all the decks, but
right.
she was very intrigued by this one, and it's so she's kind of picky,
It's
and
deep.
she
It's
really
because
loves
it's
this
deep.
one. Huh?
It's deep and it has some intellectual gravitas to it. It
That
does, because
thing. Yeah.
I think it also comes from, I don't do fluffy, oh,
It's
life
very
is good.
direct.
I don't, because I don't think it's useful for me to do that. It's very useful for people who want that. They
Yeah.
just want a hug. They just need an angel to tell them all is well. You know what I mean? That's just not me. It's like, no, do your work. My cards are going to say, you need to do a personal inventory right now. Who do you resent? what choice are you making? They're saying, and you can always make another choice. Here's what you could do for yourself to better yourself. It's not about, and it's not judgmental at all, because my cards always end up saying, no, you will, spirit always has your back, like it will. But I don't do simple. I think the deck is sophisticated. It's not too hard. It's not overly, it's like you don't have to be super, super smart to understand it, but it's psychologically sophisticated because I'm psychologically sophisticated. So I can't, it's gonna channel through my filter.
What I also think it does, though, is that you put the responsibility in the creator, or in the user.
The user, yeah.
I really like that, because life is reality, right? And you
Yeah.
should live in an illusion. So taking responsibility of your own life and seeing reality for what it is, rather than making something up and
Well, I
hide
think
behind
we,
something.
we are meaning makers, and we are pattern makers, meaning makers, pattern seekers, and meaning seekers. So it's also asking us, what are we making things mean, and why? Can we see things in a different way? It offers us different perspectives. And I do think that what we need is clarity and perspective, especially now.
Yeah. So I asked you in the email, I don't know if you saw it, if you want to do a reading for us.
Sure, I'll do
Yeah.
a collective reading. Yes, I'm going to use the mini deck. This
Yeah.
deck is also
I
small.
haven't seen them in real life, just
Yeah, they're
on
like really
photo.
little.
Yeah. Oh,
They,
cute. But they're
they,
exactly the same, right?
oh, same, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just they're called the pocket oracle. The bigger ones are better because the guidebook is, you can read it easier.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is,
I like the big ones.
I like the big
But
one.
these are really good. The small ones, if you want
Yeah,
to
like
bring
in your
with you
purse.
your, yeah, exactly.
And spirit animal is little too. Okay, so let's take a look at, what do the people who are watching this video or reading this interview need to know about moving forward in this chaotic world that we live in, right? For the highest good. I'm going to take 4 cards. Oh, that's interesting. They're all upright. Nope, not the last one isn't.
How do you shuffle it in order
Oh,
to
I
get
shuffle them. I just shuffle them and keep shuffling them. Every day I shuffle them. I'll turn them around on a floor. I'll throw them on the floor, whip them around like this. I'll do like poker. I'll just bend the cards, any which way. People always say, how should I shuffle? Any way you want, as long as the cards are mixed. So the first
exactly?
card is this. It says time for a nap. The card is all about ensuring that you rest. So it sounds like, oh, that's such a general thing to say, but not really. I think we get very exhausted by the amount of information that's bombarding us all the time. And we aren't equipped to take in that much stimulation. So making sure you take media breaks, right? I always say, get off social media, get off your computer, get in nature, rest, making sure you have enough sleep. Simple things like water and sleep, because when we are in times of chaos and disturbance, people are in stress response, and they don't sleep enough, they don't rest, they're on patrol, they're looking for what could go wrong. So this is really, really important to remember that you are safe and to discover inner certainty inside you. The second card is flexible. And this card is all about resilience and not seeing the world through a rigid set of standards. Making way for something new means that you need to be more supple and less attached to the form that you think it needs to come in. I always tell people, don't wait for the outer world to start behaving the way you want it to for you to step forward into your dreams, right? To get your dreams up. Oh, look at that. Because the truth is that being flexible and being more open and curious, like curiosity enables us to see more and not limit ourselves by what we think things should look like in our lives and in the world at large. Building blocks. be solid in your foundation. Know where you are clearly rooted. So understanding that you build your metaphoric house on a foundation, make sure that foundation is steady and solid. And what that means is really is having a really good conscious contact to a higher power, understanding that spirit is the first realm that we operate from. We were first spirit before we were humans. And
Yeah.
so having that as a foundation for your life will ensure this kind of success. It doesn't ensure you're never going to suffer, because that's not true, but it will ensure that you will stay certain and hopeful about yourself and the world, even when you make wrong, detours, or when life doesn't go your way, etc. You still feel that sense of purpose for you and the world, and love that exists everywhere. And last but not least, the observer card is in protection. And that's always about not taking life so personally. Right? The world sometimes can be suction cupped onto the end of our nose, and we only see as far as the end here. It's just me, 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 me. But it's not. We are entering into a period where we is a very important thing. But we cannot serve the we without knowing the purpose of the me, right? So being authentic and true and trusting, because when we get too ego focused, it's when we edge God out. The idea is that we have a clarity of identity where we ease God's order, and that we can only do that when we're in the witness, where we step back and look at the bigger picture and say, I don't know. And it's okay not to know. Say, I don't know. I will be curious to discover what's next, as opposed to I must have it exactly the way I have it, because then you just get completely self-centered. And that's not what this world needs right now. It needs people to be resilient and flexible and well rested, with good foundations and good sense of spirit, and trusting that we are all meaningful in this world. Not one of us is better than the other. And know that, when we can not take the world so personally, the world becomes so much more of a magical place for us. And that's it.
That's a beautiful reading. That's I would say it's something we all need to hear.
Well, the cards were the ones that brought it, and I just told the story.
Thank you for sending that out to us as well. I really like what you were saying about spirit, and that being our first base, because whenever it makes it clear to me that whenever I feel a little out of balance,
Yep.
I'm more in my ego than in my spirit.
Yeah, me too. Always.
It must be, since if
It
spirit
is.
is our first base, whenever I'm a bit out of balance, or insecure or unsure myself, it's because I'm too influenced by society, ego, outer stuff. It
Yeah.
must be, right?
Yeah, totally. And ego comes out of when we're in fear too. We clamp down. We forget that there's a connection to spirit. It's so interesting how we're made. It's such a, I mean, we are born knowing that we are connected to all things, that we have nothing to fear, that life is available to us, and spirit is everywhere all the time in all places. And then we spend the rest of our life forgetting it, and then trying to remember it again until we're dead. Right? So
Yeah, but that's also some force have created this for us. So we
I'm
are
good.
living in a
Yeah.
riddle where we have to live in the both worlds and try to
Both
find
and.
our path. It's not
Both
easy.
and. No. And that's, you just said both worlds.
Mhm.
We have to live both and. This is true, but this can also be true at the same time. And so,
Yes.
and that is always true. And that's actually part of why I created well, we're talking about this deck, but anyway, that is a huge foundation of all my teaching, in that it is not only one way all the time. It's like both can coexist, but you can choose also where to place your attention. without
Yeah.
disrespecting the integrity of something else that exists at the same time. Suffering can exist, but you can still have hope and joy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, tragedy can exist and you can still be creative,
Mm.
right? It's like there's all these things that, beauty and opportunity can exist, and there still can be deconstruction. And you know what I mean? So there's like all kinds of things can happen at the same time. And we have to just know that complexity is something we just need to live with and find our way. And we will not be perfect at it ever. I don't expect anyone will be until the
Mm.
day they die.
So just wrapping up a few of the things that comes to my mind when during our conversation here is that using an oracle deck as your therapy method or technique or help, that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I'm training coaches right now in using that specific deck to coach clients. And yes, therapists use my deck. So, yeah, we have people in the school now that are therapists that are learning how to use it in a dialogue with their patients. And I love it because it's really subject oriented, right? So the theme of what's coming up, and it works off of synchronicity, which means it's always telling the truth. It just never lies. It can't.
It can.
Doesn't
And
know how.
transformation, you are creating transformative stuff,
Mhm.
products, books, and etc. And you have made the most tremendous transformation I've heard about in a long time, from a young age, going through all that pain and suffering and turning your life around. So thank you for sharing that. It gives
So welcome.
inspiration, I think, to a lot of people.
You are so welcome. Well, thank you. I got a second chance at life, so I don't take any of it for granted.
Yeah. So how do you live right now? Are you alone? Are you with
I
someone
have a
or
husband. I have a great husband. Yeah. Mark used to run my brand. He was in charge of my business. I've been with him 23 years. Yes, 23 years. Happily married. He's my everything. He's my guy. We're nothing alike. He's an Aries. I'm a Cancer. I'm very woo woo. He's very grounded. And yeah, he's my I don't know, I couldn't live without him. Very interesting man. He's right now he's working on some an AI additive, because I'm not against it at all. I think if we can learn about it and use it as a way to enhance our experience, I think it's a really good thing. If we do it with integrity and intention. So he's trying to create an internal coach for my school. We're just learning how to train it right now. So that's been fun. He's very much a futurist, and um, I'm more cautious. I'm like, no. And then I'm like, okay, let me try it.
I think it's a good thing. I
I
think
do
that we
too.
should evolve with it and
You too.
try to hold its hand. But
Yes, and hold it. Don't let it be just
yeah,
yeah, don't let it control us. Like
yeah,
we have to be in charge of it too.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Great.
he's doing that, and he's also a writer, and he built the brand to a level where, we had a tremendous amount of success. And then I went to Hay House, and it was like a lot of work. We had 20 employees, and so we were like, okay, we're
Wow.
exhausted. We can't. Can you take it? And they did, which is great. So I work just as hard, but
I totally understand that. You are a creator and you should do what
I
you are the best at.
I'm only good at creating. I don't want to run a business. And my husband needs to be creative now too, right? So, and I have no interest in retiring. I'm just getting started again. So I'm just beginning a new chapter of as a teacher and as a mentor. So I needed time
Great.
to be creative.
Yeah, you should. So, do you have any children, can I ask?
No, unfortunately, due to that terrible experience when I was 19, I cannot have kids, but I
Mm.
have little doggies. I have two of
Mm.
them. Here, you want to say hi? Her name is
Yes.
Bisou. This is Bisou.
Oh gosh.
Oh, she's a
So
little old lady. Hello, boo boo.
what's that kind what's race?
She is a Pomeranian.
Oh, she is. God, I don't have my glasses on. So
Yeah.
she's so dark. She's beautiful.
Yeah, she is so sweet. She has no teeth. and she's bald in her body. And the other one I have is also a Pomeranian, but she's bigger. And yeah, so this one here is 10. She's 10 years old. I know. She's my baby. Your mama's baby. Yeah.
Oh God. Dogs and cats. They're true friends.
I'm a dog person. I love cats, but I'm so deathly allergic to them.
Is there anything you want to end this interview with? And
it was a pleasure. Seriously, I just enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you
No,
so
I
much.
really appreciate this, because you just don't know when, like this deck has a new life again, and I feel so proud, and I feel very grateful that you're offering this to people. So I'll do whatever I can to help it.
Fantastic. So let's talk again. Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Alexandra.